It's Tuesday, October 7th. I'm Jim Czek with Iain Burns, managing editor out there in Ottawa. Beautiful day here in the Okanagan. It is the second anniversary of the massive tragedy that took place in Israel 2 years ago today. We'll talk about that a little bit later. Headlines today, though. Canadian miner soars on U.S. investment, and it's a big deal. It's a big deal. And that even beat out the headline for me for Carney arrives in Washington. He's actually sitting with Trump right now, is he not? Are they sitting down yet?
They're not sitting down as far as I can tell. I think they're still in the corridors, chin wagging.
The cameras are rolling, though. We're watching that as well. Cue the photo ops, too. It's going to be a day of photo ops. Smith amps up the need for a pipeline for prosperity. U.S. gets wealth-building companies. We get climate grifters. Who is the real threat to democracy? Is it fraud, waste, abuse, or just plain incompetence? All that and a lot more in the really big show. But we're going to watch what's going on in Washington there. But here's the big story, and this is really important. And this is Canadian miner Trilogy Metals Inc. Canadian miner. Up like massively this morning, like massively up 225%, 222%, 948 up $6.55 on word that the U.S. government is going to invest, the Department of War actually investing in them. And also they announced yesterday at the White House, they're going to build a road, a gravel road to this remote mine site. And look at it, we put the stock chart here too. Look at this stock chart here. Look at this jump. This is what Canadian, and I've said this a million times, Canadian miners, some of the best in the world, but most of them have left Canada to mine somewhere else. This mine that they're talking about is in Alaska. They're going to build a 200-mile gravel road to the mine site, which makes this thing feasible, right? So, and this is, a big deal for Canada, for a Canadian miner anyway. The company's listed both on the TSX and on the New York Stock Exchange as well, so. Huge deal. And the president of that is Tony Giardi, and he's the CEO of Trilogy, and it comes from Ivanhoe Mines, another great Canadian company, and then also in there a guy from Placer Dome. These are like all a bunch of Canadian miners, right? So just impressive. And the Department of War are going to invest about $35 million in the development of the critical mineral resources at UKMP. This is a big deal. These are the deals that we should be announcing here in Canada. But this is a Canadian company getting a deal with the Americans. These are wealth-building companies. These are actually mining metals that are needed for solar panels as well, copper, electric vehicles, a whole bunch of things to build ships, all kinds of things. And this company has a 50% interest in the upper Kobuk mineral projects, which hosts numerous areas containing high-grade massive sulfides. This is like critical minerals, yeah. So copper, zinc, why am I can't talk this morning? Copper, zinc, lead, gold, silver, all kinds of stuff in there. Super impressive, right? So again, great deal for this Canadian miner that is doing, like, look at this. And the Canadian mining, like resource sector, has been suffering a bit. But gold now at all-time highs, copper at highs, silver at highs. So the miners are starting to poke their head up. Another big one here, B2 Gold up, IMG up. All the miners are now finally starting to show. But a lot of them have mines somewhere else, sadly. And what has Canada focused on for the last 10 years? Let's listen in here. Let's listen to where we've spent our focus.
Next, I'll go with Mrs. Heather Exner-Pirot. À vous la parole.
The floor is yours.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, committee members, for the opportunity to speak to you today. The Government of Canada once described its 2030 emissions reduction plan as presenting an ambitious and achievable roadmap. It was half right. The plan was ambitious, but it will not be achieved. It is hampering the Canadian economy just the same. The previous Liberal government made achieving climate targets the centerpiece of its policy agenda. The economy and national security took a backseat. That policy preference has had far-reaching implications, and Canada has gotten poorer and weaker. The government has now committed to meeting higher NATO spending targets, becoming an energy superpower, and becoming the fastest growing economy in the G7. None of these goals are compatible with the 2030 emissions reduction plan. In polling from Abacus this past weekend, when asked what the top issues facing Canada are, climate change and environment had fallen to 9th. The cost of living, the economy, housing affordability, and unemployment preoccupy Canadians' thoughts. I still want to believe a clean environment and strong economy can go hand in hand, but I'm certain a strong economy and the emissions reduction plan cannot. Rather, the emissions reduction plan has unleashed what I call the 4 horsemen of the Canadian economy. First, the clean electricity regulations have driven up electricity costs to record levels. It has also made it harder to build adequate power generation in Canada at a time when AI demand is skyrocketing. Not only are we missing out on a generational outlay of private capital in the hundreds of billions of dollars, but we are rendering ourselves more and more dependent on the United States for what is clearly a strategic capability. Second, the EV mandate is pushing against the tide of consumer preference and is totally detached from market realities. Even before the auto industry faced uncertainty and disruption from American tariffs, the EV mandate was adding pressure and costs and impeding their competitiveness. Now, with the tariffs in place, the mandate is an existential threat. Third, the emissions cap, while still in draft form, has added tremendous uncertainty to the Canadian oil and gas sector and impeded the attraction of capital. Industry has repeatedly said that they cannot meet the cap without shutting in production. Our LNG and oil will not be globally competitive with the cap in place, and capital will flow to places with lower environmental and ethical standards. Finally, while the government suspended the consumer carbon tax in the spring due to its unpopularity, there seems to be an idea that the industrial carbon tax will pick up the slack in Canada's emissions targets. The carbon market only works if heavy emitters are willing to purchase credits. The higher the industrial carbon price goes, the less viable their Canadian operations are. And at some point, that capital simply leaves to carbon agnostic jurisdictions. At a certain price, the industrial carbon tax will mostly be effective at pushing heavy industry to places with lower environmental and ethical standards. Global emissions will not.
This is what we were talking about yesterday. The carbon credits. This is why they keep the emissions cap. And Heather Exner-Pirot is a Canadian political scientist and policy researcher. And seems to be making a lot of business sense. She's a special advisor to the Business Council of Canada. And but common sense doesn't really play a role because, you know, like in one sentence, we're going to be the energy superpower, but then we're going to leave all these things in place that block it from happening.
Yeah, it's fundamentally, I mean, the Canadian government doesn't take it quite seriously as the American government, but the American government is the global hegemon and has, you know, if the American government doesn't figure this stuff out, it will lose its empire. It will lose its control of the world, what control it still has, because you can't build a military without mining all these minerals and being able to, you know, get the fuel and all the rest of it. And China and Russia are quite good at that sort of thing. So the Americans look at that and say, okay, this is a challenge to our imperium. We have to do something about it. But Canada, for all the conversations about critical minerals and how crucial it is and all the rest of it, this is what I mean, like, and this is what I meant when I highlighted it many times in the past. They say things, but then they don't act as if they believe them. So Mark Carney said lots of things about the impending end of the trade relationship with the US or just the relationship in general, but then he doesn't act like that. So that's the difference, really, isn't it? It's the difference between words and actions.
It more comes down to what is it that they're really trying to accomplish. And like I said yesterday, I believe it is the carbon credits. Otherwise, they would have removed the emissions cap. And, you know, Danielle Smith here, Danielle Smith put out an op-ed in the Financial Post. And she said, you can't build Canada without build pipeline. And Alberta's got $9 trillion worth of resources in the ground. That Mark Carney said in his books that needs to keep it in the ground. And then she goes on to say, had we completed the Northern Gateway, Energy East, and the Keystone XL, Canada's GDP would be $55 billion stronger today. And this resource wealth, $9 trillion, presents Canada and Canadians with boundless opportunities, right? Who doesn't want better healthcare? Who doesn't want better universities? Who doesn't want better roads? Like, we have one Trans-Canada Highway. in Canada that goes from coast to coast. It's not even 4-lane. How many people have to die in that golden stretch there before they can actually invest in our highways? And these are the ways to get it done.
Or die on a waiting list to see a medical specialist or something like that.
And then they say, oh, it's like this all over the world. In Mexico, you can see lots of doctors. Like you can go all over the world and see. You can go to the U.S. If you have money, you can see a doctor right away. And if we had more money, we could probably see a doctor here. It's absolutely ridiculous.
There are countries out there in the world that are richer than Canada, and their quality of life is higher. We were looking at that chart yesterday, weren't we? It was trying to measure quality of life. The countries at the top are the richest countries. It's not a surprise. It's Switzerland and Denmark and Norway and countries like that. And Qatar, they tend to be quite high up there. It's the wealthy countries. And unfortunately, for whatever reason, a kind of hysteria, a kind of social panic or something like that infected the brains of Canadians 10, 15 years ago. And they decided to turn against their own ATM, their own wealth production system. And as a consequence, she says 55 billion. I mean, it's probably a lot more than that, isn't it? That Canada's missed out on.
Yeah. And also, look who profited from this. Mark Carney was one of the leaders, one of the biggest voices in the world. He was at the WF and spoke at Davos many times, and he was seen at the banking alliance, as this climate czar. Here's Danielle Smith also saying Premier Eby's threat yesterday to fight against and block Alberta's most valuable asset from exporting on Canada's northwest coast is both un-Canadian and unconstitutional. And it'll likely end up in court. So, Eby keeps saying that there's no project. Again, who's going to put up the capital if there's federal legislation that blocks them? Like, who's going to risk billions of dollars just to find out you're not allowed? That's the thing. That's the trick, or that's the grift, right?
But she said as well, it's important to see what she says there. There is no universe where Alberta will tolerate being landlocked in our own country by our neighbouring province. That's what it kind of comes down to, isn't it? It's about, it really is the question. It's the question that we seem to ask a lot these days. Is Canada a country? Is it actually a country? Or is it closer to something like the European Union? Is it some kind of, are the provinces really countries? Or what are we doing here? What's this arrangement? What's this deal? What's the relationship? Because obviously British Columbia, like David Eby and the rest, everybody in British Columbia would refuse to tolerate a situation where Alberta said, no, you can't send your trains or your trucks through Alberta. It's just not going to happen. If you want to do that, you're going to have to go through Yukon and all the way around. No way. And obviously that kind of thing never happens in a real country. So the question is, can Alberta export its product from a port in its own country, Canada, or not? Or are they two different countries, Alberta and British Columbia?
And I think they get away with it here, again, is because the media. We saw that with Jason Kenney there talking to David Cochrane yesterday. The Canadian media, the national media in Canada, is basically an arm of the government. And this government has suppressed our natural resources in the past 10 years, and the NDP are no different in that regard. You got a clip here for David Eby you want to play here.
This is what's upset Danielle Smith so much. So that's the context.
Is an unmatched land of possibility. But our province and our country face unprecedented threats. Now, more than ever, British Columbians are coming together with major opportunities that will deliver prosperity for all of Canada. British Columbians are lighting the path ahead, and we're going to deliver a brighter future for our province and our country. Here in this province, we have literally tens of billions of dollars worth of major projects that are ready to go. They are economically sound, private sector and First Nation led, and will create many thousands of good-paying union jobs for families. Through these projects, we will drive the Canadian economy at a time when it's under direct threat and attack by Donald Trump and those who seek to bring his harmful political project here to Canada. The fictional Alberta Bitumen Pipeline project achieves Literally none of these things. Doesn't have First Nations consent. Makes no financial or economic sense. It has no private proponent, no route, no private funding, and would cost taxpayers billions. The non-existent Alberta pipeline project would put tens of billions of dollars in real BC projects and jobs at risk. On top of that, it threatens one of the world's most precious and intact ecosystems, our beautiful BC coast and Great Bear Rainforest. This region is one of our country's greatest assets and supports thousands of jobs in coastal industries. Salmon alone supports local jobs, communities, and cultures. It's central to both the economy and way of life on the North Coast. The Alberta Fantasy Bitumen Pipeline means putting all of that, the major projects, the economy, the jobs, and our coastline at risk. What the Conservatives in Alberta are pushing is an entirely...
Quite the theatrics there. Do you notice how he's gone from like angry to super pumped to kind of like sad? Did you see that? If you missed that, if you're watching, if you missed that, go watch that again, because he goes from like schooling Alberta then to just like, and the beautiful pristine coastline. Yeah,
it's like, that's very instructive. That should just be thrown straight into the history books. I think that one. I mean, so that we can learn about this period. I think it's the perfect representation of a certain kind of attitude in Canada towards natural resources, but also this kind of just this attitude that David Eby's chosen, where it's like it's zero sum, isn't it? It's like, no, we can't do all the things that we want to do in Canada. It's like it's our thing and therefore not your thing, or it's your thing and therefore not our thing. It's just a very primitive attitude. Yeah. And rightly, I think this is, or it's to be expected at least, that Danielle Smith has reacted furiously to this, because it's just, again, the question that I just asked, is Canada a country? Is that somebody talking about his country there, Canada, or is he talking about his province as his country there? What's the deal? How is this going to work? And obviously in that sort of atmosphere, in that milieu, Danielle Smith and a lot of people in Alberta, they're close to the precipice, aren't they? Clearly. Danielle Smith just now, or earlier, said there are enough signatures now for the referendum. She thinks, she's under that impression that the signatures have been obtained, 200,000 or whatever it was. So it's going to happen. This referendum is going to happen. Are people like David Eby, do you think, is he likely to keep Canada a going concern as a country, or is he likely to contribute to the breaking apart of Canada? We're going to have to start asking that question. We're going to have to start judging our leaders based on the answer to that question.
We do have Donald Trump and Mark Carney sitting down. Maybe we'll try to cut in there and see what they're saying, and we'll just cut in there for a couple seconds and see what's going on with Carney and Trump.
And if you have a lot of problems, and they do, and they have an incompetent policy, just like they had open border policy, anybody could come in. They came in from prisons, they came in from mental institutions, drug dealers, they came in from all over the place, and we don't have that anymore. This country is becoming we're a very strong country. Look, financially speaking, I would say that because of the tariffs, because of the election, because of the policy, because of the great big beautiful deal, it's what I added the word great because it really is. It's the biggest bill ever passed in the history of our country. We don't need another bill. It's the biggest tax cuts, when you think, no tax on tips, no tax on Social Security, no tax on overtime for the people. But far beyond that, what it does is incentivizes auto plants and AI and all of the things that nobody's ever passed a bill like it. We don't need another bill. We don't need any more bills. I said, let's get it all at once. I was greatly helped by our Speaker, Mike Johnson, and by the Senate. I'll tell you what, John Thune's both of those guys have been incredible. And we got a bill passed that I said, let's see if we can get it all done. Because these Democrats are like insurrectionists.
Let's go back. That's fine. Let's see when Mark Carney gets to speak, because Donald Trump is just making him listen in on his thing. And he's going through his, what
Playing
makes
the accordion.
Yeah, but Carney's looking at the ground and wondering what's going on. Like no tax on tips, and then Canadians are watching this and saying, like, where's our no tax? Right? Where's that?
Carney's probably happy for that to go on, because the
you
longer
put that
he's
back
doing
up,
that
though,
and attacking the Democrats, the longer he's not being attacked. And it's like, okay, let's keep it like this.
If you could put that back in the corner there, and if we see Carney speaking, then we'll put it back up there. But we've heard Trump's thing many, many times. But here's the thing. This is what Carney and them have focused on. Tim Hodgson, again, we talked about this yesterday. You can go back and watch the whole thing. I won't go through the whole thing. Well, Canadian companies go to Alaska to generate wealth and prosperity, and got an investment from the U.S. government, got an investment and a green light. They took out the regulations, they built them a road, they're doing all these things. It's a fast-track trilogy, right? And the stock shot up 300% almost, it's 250%. And meanwhile, what comes to Canada from America? A climate grifter that's coming here for a 75% tax credit and the ability to tax our oil companies. This is it, and you go back and watch that whole show. This is what they're celebrating, this carbon capture company that was a 2023 award winner from the WEF, no less. Carney's talking, so let's go back. Carney's actually talking. Let's see if we can go back there.
Thirdly, there are areas, as the President just said, where conflict, maybe not so much conflict, we compete. There are areas where we compete, and it's in those areas where we have to come to an agreement that works. But there are more areas where we are stronger together, and that's what we're focused on. And we're going to get the right deal. Right deal for America, right deal, obviously, from my perspective, for Canada.
Including one thing that, wait. So one thing where we are working very closely is the Golden Dome. That's the protective mechanism, and you see how that works. It's unbelievable. Ronald Reagan wanted to have it, and at that time they didn't have the technology, even close to the technology. But he was advanced, and we'll be working together on a Golden Dome for the two countries, and it's something that I think is going to be very important, especially when you look at the world. You look at what's happening. We want to have that protection. It's really amazing. The technology is unbelievable.
President, why do you say some federal workers should not get their back pay?
That's good. That's good. Hey, that's good. I want to draw your attention to
screaming. It's like a camel market in 5th century Arabia or something.
I want to make a really big point here. Look at the press, and we're going to listen to Caitlin Collins later. Look at the press access, screaming questions, and it's the loudest voice that gets a question. Does that happen in Canada? Does that happen in Canada? No, they filter out who can even attend these press conferences. If you look at even the debate, when Rebel News was smart enough to get to the front of the line, they canceled the next day. And now it turns out that they said that there was threats to security, and that turns out that was a lie propagated by the CBC. Look at the difference. And they say Trump is the threat to democracy. He takes questions all day, and we're going to listen to Caitlin Collins from CNN, and they're not friends of each other. And it's just absolutely different, absolutely completely different. And Trump provides access all day long. Carney and the Liberals provide almost no access. How many letters have you sent to Stephen Guilbeault? How many responses have you got so far? Yeah.
I mean, his little servant was stringing me along for a while, but that's now stopped. I'm not even being strung along.
Same thing goes for here in British Columbia. Brenda Bailey's promised me an interview. This goes back to, I don't know, months now. Like months, literally months. And I keep getting 30 minutes, 20 minutes, 10 minutes, and now just ghosted, just absolutely ghosted. This is what they call transparency and accountability here, the NDP and the Liberals. Absolutely zero. Anyway, and just here's when we talk about this climate, these carbon credits is what, when Carney was on the World Economic Forum thing, carbon credits is a thing. Brookfield sells carbon credits. So just watch how this starts to play out. The food professor, we love this stuff from the food professor. Here it is again. The coverage on coffee prices and food inflation by CBC and the Canadian press, imagine that, is becoming insufferable. According to them, coffee prices are up only because of climate change. Imagine that. Something that fits their narrative. There you go, right? Hence, we'll need some carbon credits.
I'm reading the rest of the tweet here because I was under the impression that it was not due to climate change, but due to a bad coffee crop, bad year for coffee plants or whatever. But yeah, obviously public policy, as he says, so that does policies that they do have a consequence.
Oh, and then this next one obviously is we don't need it in there, but Carney arrived there. But we're going to be inundated with photo ops this next one here. Get ready for the photo ops. Not much for deals, but photo ops abound. And they're sending the Canada's Brain Trust down there. So Anita Nunn, the one that was clapping, that actually made that speech in the UN, basically sticking a stick in Donald Trump's eye and talking about multilateralism. And there she is, her and Jolie off with Dominic flying on our dime, just living it up while Canadians are stressed about putting food on the table and dreaming about beef.
And coffee. But Anita Anand, I mean, it's very interesting to me. I'm going to enjoy watching that press conference back to see if anything is mentioned of this. But Anita Anand, when she'd just been named foreign minister, came out and just made such an ignorant, like appallingly ignorant and foolish comment about the Israel-Palestine conflict. Really shocked me, and I know I wasn't the only one. There was a little bit of commentary about it afterwards, just how hopelessly uneducated and ill-informed she was on that. Which you'd think, if you're going to speak about two foreign peoples having a war with each other, before you spoke, you would know what you were going to say. But alas, no, in her case. And I'm sure that among the people to have heard that were some people in the White House in the US. And she's gone there now. She's in the Oval Office right now. And it's the 7th of October, 2-year anniversary of the slaughter in Israel. I just have a feeling that she's going to be getting grilled a little bit. And it also raises a question from my perspective, like, why would you bring somebody along like that who's proved themselves to be embarrassing and a little bit of a liability? But I mean, it's very possible that she's gone there to try and clear it up and try and explain why she said such stupid things a few months ago.
Good one. Her counterpart in the United States is Marco Rubio. Go check his accounts. Do you think he puts up these kind of like nonsensical photo op posts, or does he actually try to make a difference in the world? Like, he must shake his head.
He does his fair share of, staged photos, or he has a photographer that follows him around.
He must shake his head when he's saying, "This is my counterpart."
Well, the thing is, she's not, is she? Like, it's ridiculous. It's putting way too much stress on that word counterpart, isn't it? It's just that the word can't handle that amount of stress, and the reason is because she's not his counterpart. She's basically, as far as he's concerned, she's just another lobbyist. One of the thousands and thousands of lobbyists that American politicians have to encounter on a daily basis. That's all she is. She's not a counterpart. I mean, if Marco Rubio really wanted to have a conversation with Canada, I think it would be more likely that he would do it through Trump to Carney, or even directly to Carney. He's not going to get anything out of her, is he?
No, maybe some clapping. And this is what Mark Carney promised us. We're going to listen to his little speech here with why he should have got elected, and he's with the CBC, the promotion department there for the Liberal Party.
And I will ask you some of those questions, but I still think that it would be helpful for Canadians to know exactly what you would do when it comes to tariffs. So why are you being so reticent to talk about that?
Because I'm a good negotiator. I have negotiated a number of situations in the past. I know how to manage crises. I know what you do in the order you can control things.
You cut that off? Well, yeah. Oh, there you go. But he's a good negotiator. So we'll see what he gets today. We'll see what...
but he's also, I keep hearing, including from his own mouth, that he's the most humble man in the world. Doug Ford also said he was the most humble man in the world. Didn't sound very humble there, did he? Didn't sound very humble when he was presented with a critique of his economic policy. And he said, related to Trevor Toome, he said, I've got more experience than him. I'm better than him, basically. It's like, And the next thing, it's a shame that we haven't got the clip, but he's done an interview with The Economist, and they released a little snippet, and they're talking about.
I thought I did have.
Oh, we do have that clip too, but it's such a good clip because he's speaking in a very unguarded way, which is surprising really, because he thinks that he's speaking at such a high level that none of his enemies are gonna understand what he's saying. So he thinks that he's free, he's at liberty just to like go all in, and he basically in this interview with The Economist's economics editor, I think, he just comes out and says, in so many words, that Donald Trump is stupid because he doesn't understand comparative advantage, one of the most basic concepts in economics. Most people are probably aware of what it means, and it doesn't understand what it is to hold the reserve currency, the world's reserve currency. I mean, astonishing. Like if you can read between the lines, astonishingly like full on insults. You know, it's not something that you usually get between. Not something you usually see coming out of the mouth of a Canadian Prime Minister about the American president. Basically just said he's economically illiterate. He's a moron that doesn't understand economics. But he said it in the kind of international conference speak, and he hopes that Trump wouldn't be able to understand it. But very interesting.
We're going to miss the next clip there, and then we'll go on to this. Trump says 25% tariffs coming. No, go to the next one. Next one. There you go. 25% tariffs coming for heavy-duty trucks. That won't be good for Canada. But I did want to share this, and this is Caitlin Collins, no friend of Trump. Like, she attacks him all the time. But here's the point I've been trying to make for months now, probably even close to a year. Listen to what Caitlin Collins has to say about Trump, and she has no friend to him. Like, I mean, Trump keeps telling her that she's the worst reporter, that she's part of the fake news, and all this stuff. Insults her like on a daily basis almost. But listen to what she has to say about Trump when she's just relaxed and talking.
Different because Trump is such an accessible president that, like, if he's just swearing in the ambassador to Greece, like, typically that wouldn't be a newsworthy event if President Biden or any typical president was probably doing it. But Trump's moments, anytime the camera's around and the reporters are around, it can turn into a press conference. And so you never go into the Oval thinking, oh, this is going to be a quick, we call them sprays. It's where you go in, basically a photo op, and then you leave. Because Trump will swear someone in, and then he'll turn to you and say, you know, any questions? And he'll take maybe questions for 45 minutes. And so you have to, like, I always keep a running list of questions on my phone.
Okay.
Because you never know when you're going to run into him or when he's going to start taking questions. And so you can't just have one or two. Like, you have to have like 10 ready to go.
Because you said the word typical president, right? Not your typical president. Typical president was swearing in someone from Greece, like we would know. Is that because of predictability?
So Trump is my first president that I ever covered. And I covered Biden as well. And so I can compare it to him. But even with President Obama, you know, there are these moments in the Oval Office that everyone has come to know because you see them on TV so often.
Right.
But when you speak to reporters who covered President Obama, he almost never responded to shouted questions. It wasn't his thing. He didn't, you know, he would have his moments with world leaders, and then you would leave the Oval. Trump kind of upended that when he came into the White House. And sometimes presidents are press averse. Trump embraced the media. I mean, he did it for decades as like this New York mogul.
Sure.
And so he just had a different approach to the press and always has, you know, long before taking office. Most politicians are not very press savvy. It kind of depends on who it is. I think Trump.
It's the accessibility. Like I've been saying it 3 times a day, like forever, right? Like right now in that room there, it'd be hard to get what's about Canada, what's not, because there's how many reporters in that room? 100? How many in that room? Like
dozens.
And you know what I mean? And the questions typically aren't going to be about Canada. Like if there's a CBC reporter in that room, likely there is, or CP, they're never going to be outwit any of these guys from, like, you know, some of the big outlets, right? It's going to be tough to get a question, right?
Not going to outshout. Well, Trump also has his favorites. So if he recognizes the face of somebody like that Peter Doocy guy, he always says, you know, you, okay. And actually, his enemies as well. He likes his enemies to ask questions, doesn't he? He finds it funny.
Yeah, Caitlin gets a lot of questions all the time. I mean, he also takes a jab at her
and
all
usually
the time.
you say, okay, you can ask a question even though you're absolutely horrible and you're worthless network that nobody watches. But then she still gets to ask the question.
But he does.
But no, it's funny that she mentioned Obama because he was terrible. He was absolutely terrible from a media perspective. But it's not just about the media. It's about, you know, communicating to the people. He was really bad at that. But having read about his presidency, I know, I mean, you could have guessed at the time, but it's now out there that he was also really bad with everybody. It wasn't just with the American people and with the press. He was really bad behind the scenes. He just never spoke to anybody, and he just kind of kept his own counsel. He had a few favorites.
Yeah.
So that was kind of a personality thing in the case of Barack Obama.
And Biden just never, I mean, probably Trump does more in like a week than Biden did in 4 years.
Well, Biden, God bless him, if you're that way inclined, was not compos mentis, was he? Let's be honest. So that's why he didn't do it. I think if Biden had become president when he was in his 50s or something like that, like in his younger days, he did used to speak to the press a lot back in the day. So he would have done it then. But the problem with Biden is that he was just gone, wasn't he? He wasn't really.
Let's check in. Let's check in on Carney. Looks like he's talking again.
President, will you sign a trade deal with Canada that doesn't include supply managed goods like dairy, for example? If the federal government said that's off the table.
Well, if the deal would include dairy, I mean, it's going to include everything. We'll do a comprehensive.
Have you identified programs to eliminate under this shutdown?
Oh, sure. Sure.
Which ones?
We have a lot. I'm not going to tell you, but we'll be announcing it pretty soon. But we have a lot of things that we're going to eliminate and permanently eliminate. You know, one of the things that we have is some advantage, you could say, but because of the shutdown, which I think they made a big mistake, we're able to take out billions and billions of dollars of waste, fraud, and abuse, and they've handed it, you know, on a silver platter. And you know, Russell Vogt, he's a serious person, very serious person, and he's sitting there and he's getting ready to cut things.
Can you go back?
And this
like
is
2
something
minutes
that was
Carney was
handed to us
speaking.
by,
Can you just
I assume,
actually roll it back?
I just don't know if she ever had. Right?
Yeah, very good. We're coming down for the World Series, Mr. President.
Okay.
What is Canada giving you in return? If you say Mr. Carney is going to be leaving Washington happy, what's Canada giving you in return?
Well, you'll find out, but I think the people of Canada, they will love us again. Most of them still do. If you say only 25%, I assume a lot of them, I think they love us. And you know what? I'm not the biggest hockey fan, but I like it a lot. And I watched some of the greatest hockey games I've ever. How good were those games, right?
Yeah, very good. We're coming down for the World Series, Mr. President.
Okay. By the way, your team is.
That was funny. But we got there. It was good. They're going to love us again.
We're going to skip past a few. We're going to go to the Toronto Police Association because the Conservatives tried to pass a bill, and the bill C-242, jail not bail, and of course it was voted down. Sean Fraser, and this is the Toronto Police Association saying they're disappointed that the vote in the House of Commons regarding Bill C-242, jail not bail. But we are hopeful the federal Liberals under Carney will do the right thing and step up with their own legislation. This is a big issue for Canadians. I just don't understand how they put this internet thing ahead of this. This is one of the things that's pressing for many Canadians. And again, the priorities of the Liberal government are completely different than what the wants of most Canadians are.
And then even when they do, it seems like they're answering the demands of the people. We're going to make it illegal to wave swastikas or something. It's like, who's going on about swastikas? When's the last time you saw a swastika? Like, what people are worried about is like crime on the sort of street level. But then the Liberals come out and say, yeah, swastikas, man. We're going to get rid of swastikas. It is a shame. It's a shame that we passed over that champagne thing, though, because that is in the committee. I don't know if you want to still watch that.
Yeah, we can go back to it.
Because that's Francois-Philippe Champagne patronizing a woman who worked in finance, which is a lot more than could be said for him, and trying to explain to her how certain things work, how economics works, while uttering falsehoods at the same time, which I just found fascinating.
It may take us a second to get there, but there we go.
And also like affecting a kind of almost like like he's some kind of grandpa who's worried about his granddaughter. It's like, but I just hope that you will. It's good. It's cinema.
Yeah, go ahead and play it.
Changing how you present the budget, rather than changing your reckless spending, so that on a net basis you actually balance it.
Well, you should ask yourself why you voted against measures that support Canadians. I think people watching at home would be surprised to see your voting records and say you voted against measures that would make their life more easy.
Very simple answer. I really want you to answer my question. Why are you changing how you're presenting it rather than actually trying to balance the budget?
I think Canadians are entitled to transparency. In a frank discussion between you and I think your husband and your family and everyone in your riding is entitled to have more transparency to see the budgeting, where their tax dollars going to be used. I think this is about clarity. Transparency.
I agree. Transparency is a good thing. But every single person in my riding does not get to rework their budget to see if it looks better at month end. The bottom line is the bottom line. Yeah. If you don't have money, you don't have money. Why are you changing how you're presenting the budget instead of actually balancing it?
So the bottom line is the bottom line, but I think you cannot be against giving more information to Canadians. People want to know where their money is going. Is it for expenses or investment?
The result is the same.
Is the deficit going to be higher than under your government and Mr. Carney's government compared to Trudeau's?
You should be informing your constituent that we have the lowest deficit to GDP ratio in the G7.
Minister, please.
No, but
I'm asking a very
that's good. Like, like he's saying he's giving us transparency, but then clouding it with, like two different things, right? Like here, we're going to give you transparency under this smoke and mirrors. Just like, you can't even make this stuff up. You can't even make it up.
Relentless slime and like dodging every question. And I don't know about you, but I just found that to be immensely creepy when he said, like, I'm sure your husband and your family. It's like, why are you talking about a husband? What are you talking about a husband for, you strange little man? But anyway, I think he actually said deficit to GDP ratio, didn't he? Which is, I have to confess, I don't even know what Canada's deficit to GDP ratio is. But usually what they say is debt to GDP ratio. And they usually say it's the best in the G7. Completely fake, completely false. It's not true at all. It's Germany that has the best. But by both net and gross measures, by the way. It's just a complete falsehood. But yeah, I'm not going to pretend I know about the deficit to GDP ratio. But I mean, I would be surprised as well if Germany wasn't better than Canada in that. So, but yeah.
It's absolutely clownish behavior, and it's absolutely telling us that Canadians want transparency. And the thing is, the government-funded media is going to run cover for this. And we've already seen them run cover for this, right? They're going after the PBO that came out and said shocking, stupefying, alarming, and unsustainable. And what they do, they brought out 2 prior PBOs, and they're saying that he has to walk back those comments. Absolutely. That's what's shocking and stupefying.
Yeah.
Lo and behold, Holly Doan Blacklock's story, she's in court today, too. So we're going to find out. She's in court fighting the federal government on this password thing. She told me this weekend that she's going to be in court to see. She spent over $500,000 already fighting the federal government that accuses her of yellow journalism because what? Because she highlights things like this. A long promise investigation contracting an Indigenous Service Minister Mandy Gull-Masty's department has confirmed widespread, imagine that, irregularities, verifications missing, 2/3 of audited supplies who claimed Indigenous ownership and making preferential contracts. So again, this thing, the business director listed 2,925 contractors as verified. Auditors did not estimate how many claims were fraudulent. Indigenous set-asides were worth almost $1 billion, $862 million, $818,576 in 2023. That's the most recent available data. That's what they do. Just like when we ask for data, they're just like, you can have the stuff from 2 years ago. They have this stuff, they just don't want to release it. Auditors did not calculate how much was misspent on fraudulent claimants. This is on and on and on. What is it? Fraud? Is it waste? Is it abuse? Or is it incompetence? What is it?
It's systemic, isn't it? At that point, it seems wrong almost to call it fraud if it's part of the system, you know?
Ariana Rize, Deputy Public Works Minister, told the 2024 hearing of Commons Public Accounts Committee the practice was clearly unethical. Authorities promised stricter oversight. It was wrong. She testified, it's a terrible situation. I myself have picked up the phone to speak to the RCMP commissioner. This is rampant. This is all over the place. Like we talk about this, but is this story on CBC? Is this story on CBC? Let's go on CBC just for giggles here. What's on CBC right now? Is it above the fold? Do we have that?
It's going to be Trump.
There we go. We got Trump. Don't go below. Just this at the fold there. No, don't scroll down. Yeah, it's all about Trump. And there you go. Not there. Okay. Imagine that, eh? Imagine that. Here's another one from Holly Dones. It's disputes cooked books jibe. This is from Francois. Says it's irresponsible for MPs to suggest cabinet is cooking the books. Finance Minister. That's from Francois Philippe Champagne. Because like this is what they do. They go after you and say, like this is not the time. This is not the place. Today gives us an opportunity to really present a new way of doing things. A new way of doing things. Why are we doing it a new way? Why don't you just show the old way? Show the old way first and then talk about the new way. Do you know what I mean? Like, why would you do that unless you're trying to hide stuff? It's pretty obvious, right? It's bloody obvious.
The first few words there are correct. Today gives us an opportunity. That's, yeah. It could have taken in a different direction there. But yeah, it's an opportunity to fiddle a bit with the books, isn't it? But I do feel obliged, just to be completely fair to Champagne. I'm always fair to Champagne. Great fan of the show. But what he said was actually accurate, at least as of now. That deficit, as a percentage of GDP, is the lowest. Canada's is the lowest in the G7 right now. So, but it's important to note that he's changed, or they've changed their language, because it used to be debt to GDP rather than deficit. Deficit is just, I mean, I don't want to sound like patronizing. I don't want to sound like Champagne. Deficit is your balance on your spending, like so if you're borrowing more than you're spending, basically that's your deficit. Your debt is like the overall pile of debt that you've accumulated. They used to say debt to GDP, but that's not true. Germany has, and even the UK, a disaster of a country, even they have a better debt to GDP ratio than Canada. So that's just
we used to run surpluses here in Canada. But, like this changing, and what's really disappointing is Mark Carney was a finance guy, and he's the guy changing the presentation, and they're trying to run this through. They're trying to run this and run it with a bunch of smoke mirrors, and they got the government-funded media running cover for it and saying, oh, this new presentation is the way to do it, right? It's just absolutely, we'll see. Well, you said that. We'll watch and see how the media allows this to happen, because you said it would never happen in the UK. Definitely would never happen in the United States. They would never let this happen. But
well, they'd certainly not go along with it anyway. So when they come out and say, look at our operational budget, isn't this brilliant? In almost any other open liberal society, the vast majority of the media would laugh at that and say, shut up. We're going to get capital expenses and operational. We're going to put it all together, and that's what we're going to present. It's just we're sort of waiting now, aren't we, to see what happens. And it is my suspicion that I think CBC and the usual sort of liberal, the outlets that are favourable to the Liberal Party, I think they will report in the old way, but it's just about how they do that and whether or not if they allow themselves to write a headline that misleads people and talks just about the operational bit of the budget, then that's as good as a win for the Liberals, really.
Another one here from Holly Dones. Privacy Commissioner Philippe Dufresne said yesterday that he was never consulted on the telecom bill that would allow Cabinet to secretly cancel Canadians' internet accounts. Opponents have expressed alarm over this proposal. Bill C-8, an act respecting cybersecurity, will allow Cabinet to prohibit a telecom service provider from using all products and services provided to a specified person in the name of cybersecurity. Any threat would justify an order. So that's where they can actually just go in there and say, you no longer have internet.
Crazy.
Yeah. So we're going to see what happens to, we're going to talk about it later, Tamara Litch and Chris Barber later here. But I'm assuming that the Trump-Carney meeting is over now. And I'm just seeing if we can get any reaction as we go through and see if we find anything. And here's another one that we've talked about many times on this show. Get ready for some more of this. Our resident science person there, she says, she makes, Dr. Mona Niemer makes $393,000 a year as science advisor to Canada. And she says, ridicule and skepticism regarding UFOs are discouraging Canadians from reporting suspicious activities. And this is where she did this study. She had seven people working on it. It wasn't on discovering UFOs. It was just on how you can report UFOs. This is what we've spent money on. And she gets almost $400,000 a year. Terminology can help promote greater transparency, credibility, and acceptance of research in our professional and scientific public communities. So it's all about terminology. It seems like, whether it's, what did Chrystia Friedland say again? That the Liberals wasted 10 years on virtue signaling identity politics. It's all about the words you use. They seem to be more worried about what words you use, and we're spending millions of dollars on what words to use. Because this wasn't even about investigating UFOs. This is about how you can report a UFO. And it's like, this is that Sky Canada project. We talked about it many times. $393,000 a year she makes, plus expenses, plus bonus, plus. Neiman's office in a separate memo. Why not talk about the elephant in the room? What is the point of the view of most scientists on extraterrestrial life? Not that it doesn't exist, but there are problems of distances and timing. Two civilizations might not exist at the same time. Right? Just nonsense.
Well, it's not necessarily nonsense. This is the kind of thing that is fascinating. And obviously, I'm sure a lot of people loved Carl Sagan and Isaac Asimov and all these sort of greats that did this. The difference, though, is that they weren't given a sort of gigantic annual stipend to come out with this kind of thing. They earned their reputation through personal achievement. Like Carl Sagan actually worked for NASA on, I think it was sending satellites to Mercury or something like that. Like, they made their own money. And also, obviously, Carl Sagan wrote books and all the rest of it. And then he would speculate about this, and it wouldn't cost a penny. It wouldn't cost American taxpayers a penny, or Canadian taxpayers, because we also got to benefit from it. What's mad is this idea that there's a woman being given a crazy high salary, must be in the top sort of 1% of salaries, to do something much worse, a much lower grade than probably some popular space YouTuber is doing for free.
And here's another one. Clients of Rubicon Strategy received more than $100 million from the Skills Development Fund, according to the Trillium. Rubicon is owned by Corey Teniak, the Premier's campaign manager. Wow, how fortuitous of him, hey? Fortune follows the favored. Hey, fortune follows the favored. There you go. Here's Sam Cooper, a journalist here in British Columbia that's kind of done a lot of string theory. We're just going to listen into what Sam Cooper has to say of what's going on with Mark Carney and the Laurentian elite.
Incredible people in Ottawa that continue to think that, people like Gerald Butts, people like Dominic Barton, people like Mark Carney were more important to Canada's, global policy than Justin Trudeau. And I don't think they're wrong in that. I really don't. And so, we've talked before Mark Carney's election, I did a story drawing the concrete connections between Dominic Barton, Gerald Butts, Justin Trudeau, Mark Carney, Evan Solomon from Eurasia Group, another, little shop. And Evan Solomon, this was before he was elected and made Minister of Artificial Intelligence. So if you want to call it a cabal, sure. If you want to call it a network, if you want to call it the big brains in Ottawa that are directing Canada's, economy and policy for better and worse, and I say worse at this point, the same people keep popping up around big decisions. And to bring it back to, why you're questioning me today, I'm saying if we want to look at the Canadian Infrastructure Bank's $1 billion loan to BC going to a Chinese shipyard, it would be folly not to look at the man that designed the bank, Dominic Barton, then look further into his direct ties to China, his frequent conversations with senior Chinese party secretaries, which he acknowledges, his saying openly, I drank the Kool-Aid on China, his documented ties to some over 20 Chinese state-owned enterprises, right? So when you see all that history and then you ask, how did this loan pop out of the infrastructure bank? Again, I pulled an information document on the BC Ferries and Infrastructure Bank file, which points to the structure of McKinsey in the Infrastructure Bank at the start with Barton, continuing into Mark Carney's current Privy Council clerk, Michael Sabia, who was chair of that Infrastructure Bank after sitting with Dominic Barton and designing it. And to this day, people from McKinsey, who were the former, let's just say subordinates of Dominic Barton, or part of McKinsey as a shop, are running the Infrastructure Bank.
I think Sam Cooper's going to need more strings to do all. Anyway, this will be interesting.
It is interesting though. These people, I mean, and cabal seems to be, that's not a very fashionable word these days, is it? But certainly network, which he also used. Undoubtedly, there's a network, and Trudeau certainly had his network. Carney's got his network. Something that I find particularly interesting, and maybe one day I'll find the time to investigate further. But so many of these people, of the most powerful people in Canada, went to Oxford University and have some kind of relationship with England. I really I know, I understand the relationship between Canada and Britain, historical relationship and the Rhodes scholarships and all the rest of it, but it's a bit peculiar. They all have this, they all have some sort of English experience, almost all of them, and it's just, inevitably they must have met some of the same people. It's just, I do sort of wonder if that's important to their little gang.
Big news today, though, so we're going to see what happens to Tamara Litch and Chris Barber. They're to be sentenced today for mischief. Remember, they're noise violations and parking violations. That's their biggest.
Such an absolutely bizarre coincidence. The sentence has just been handed down, just as you started to speak there. How bizarre is that? And they're going to get conditional sentences. I don't know what those conditions are, but that's basically nothing. They're not going to go to prison.
It's a travesty that they were even put through this, because I mean, if we look at what's happening with the Palestinian protests and Antifa and all that stuff, they actually have violence going on, and they're political protests, you would argue. And they say they have a right for a political protest. This was nothing but a political protest, and what their biggest crime was noise violations and honking horns. And so if they were a threat for going to jail for 7 years. They're looking for. I have John Carpe on. We're going to get more detail in this, because John Carpe was from the Justice Center for Constitutional Freedoms, and he was one funding the legal fees here for, I think it's from Tamara or Chris. I can't remember which one, but so we have him on at what time is John on today? At 3 o'clock today, so you can tune in for that. And so John Carpe from the Justice Center for Constitutional Freedom. So there you go. Look at that timing, though, eh? That just says it's
remarkable. But that's nonetheless a conditional sentence. Yeah, they're not going to go to prison, but they're still going to have a criminal record, aren't they? And that's they're going to have a hard time. They're going to be, and they've lost 4 years of their life, obviously, to this.
This is one of the darkest times for Canada, where we invoked the Emergencies Act, and which has now shown that it should never have done, and took away people's rights and freedoms. And CBC has their dirty paws all over in there. For Rosemary Barton, they're talking about Russian money, collusion, all these things. The CBC's paws are filthy in this one, and as they helped cover up Justin Trudeau's abuse of power and privilege. And Mark Carney was part of it as well, because he's the one that advised them to freeze bank accounts. And that is another dark day for Canadian banks as well. The internet is fast, though, eh? X is doubly fast. We got a couple clips here from this that are being just all sprayed all over the internet right now. And if you can play a couple of these clips here from Carney's, I listed them right underneath there, the Tamara Litch thing there. I don't know if you can pull any of those up here.
You kindly hosted me and some of my colleagues a few months ago, and I said at the time, you are a transformative president. And since then, the transformation in the economy, unprecedented commitments of NATO partners to defense spending, peace from India, Pakistan through to Azerbaijan, Armenia, disabling Iran as a force of terror, and now, and I'm running out of time, but this is in many respects the most important.
The merger of Canada
no,
and the
what
United
you have
States.
created. That wasn't where I was going. I would no, but on this.
There you go. There's
Cheeky
Carney.
boy.
There's Carney pumping his tires, and then what does he do? He just says, "And 51st state."
To be honest, though, yeah, we said pumping his tires. Mark Carney so often seems to suffer from the disease that a lot of intelligent people suffer from, which is thinking that everybody else is a moron that can't understand what you're doing. And when he says you are a transformative president, Trump's not an idiot. He knows that that's not necessarily a compliment. That's a pretty neutral thing to say. Could be transformative in a very bad way, and it wouldn't be a surprise if Trump had made that conclusion. So I think Trump probably just thought, I'm sick of hearing this. Like, I'm just gonna slap him down as he's pronouncing in his highfalutin way.
Let's see if this next clip is the same or if it's something different. There's a couple things in here though, but we're gonna see because again, we're trying to do this live here and seeing what we can glean. I think that's the same thing. Go to the next one. Because he's doing the finger counting thing. He likes to count, right? I'm missing a finger. What the heck? I don't know where that went.
Canadians are refusing to go to the U.S. The numbers are down like 23% in the first 7 months of the year. What do you say to Canadians that don't want to go to the U.S. now because of your 51st state talk, because of the trade war, the tariffs, and the fear of also being detained at the border?
That, and Americans don't want to buy cars that are made in Canada. I mean, we have the same conflict. So there isn't. It's something that will get worked out. There's still great love between the two countries, but American people want product here. They want to make it here. Detroit was emptied out and moved to Canada, moved to Mexico, moved to other places, not just Canada. And now they're all moving back. They're moving back. We have. Right now, I was just telling Mark, we have 17 trillion, but it's really much higher. That was as of a couple of months ago. We have over $17 trillion being invested now in the United States. As an example, Biden, he was the worst president we've ever had, but they had less than $1 trillion in 4 years. We have more than 17 trillion in 8 months.
Meanwhile, back at the ranch, $62 billion has fled Canada. Meanwhile, back at the ranch.
Yeah, I mean, him saying that, I have to call him out, saying that they're Americans that don't want to buy Canadian-made cars. I mean, are there, Donnie? Don't think so. That was a bit desperate, wasn't it?
But Carney kind of really getting uncomfortable in that. And he wants to say something, but he also knows he dare not, which is troubling that he can't even be comfortable. And because it's all about talking points as opposed to just being honest, just saying things that matter.
Just cutting through the guff, one might say.
They should have never amped up this rhetoric that now they have to walk back. Do you know what I mean? They amped it up to this anti-American, where Chrystia Freeland said tanks were going to roll in the streets. I mean, they made this. David Eby, look at the rhetoric still coming on him.
Yeah, you got to get it right. Chrystia Freeland said, "I've been talking to a 4-year-old who said they're worried that tanks." It was a lot more sophisticated than that. But it's funny. I mean, it was. I did see the first couple of seconds of the sit down, and one of the very first things that Trump said when he introduced Mark Carney is, "I made this guy extremely popular in Canada," and he kept talking about that, like how he won the election because of Trump, because of him, and that's quite interesting to note, really, isn't it? It's like he's kind of taking it on the chin. And Mark Carney and the Liberal Party are very, very fortunate that it was somebody like Trump there on the other end, who is so used to being represented as the devil. Right. Yeah, he's just used to it. He's not bothered, to the extent that he found it funny. And he was like saying, "I helped him win the election, and he's really popular in Canada because of me." Like a lot of other leaders around the world wouldn't have taken so kindly to that.
They would have taken it personal for sure. A lot of people that hate Trump and that ask yourself this question: would you trade Trump for Carney right now? Ask yourself that question.
What would that look like? Donald Trump in charge of Canada. Can you imagine that?
We wouldn't have to deal with all the counting. First off, second off. Yeah. Anyway, we got a little bit of tech stuff here. FSD 14.1 rolling out today in America right now for sure. That's supposed to be almost sentient, so interesting. And there's supposed to be a big announcement drop today, 10.7. It sounds like they're going to drop like the new like cheap Model Y, apparently. So we'll see. And stock was up huge on it yesterday, but now selling off a little bit as it awaits that news there. So this is interesting. Gold at all-time highs. Silver banging on the door of all-time highs. Bitcoin all-time highs. Copper at banging on the door of all-time highs. And all these other commodities. And here's your friend, Christine Lagarde, the European Central Bank, and she's got this to say about the Bitcoin. This is what the Laurentian elite feel about Bitcoin too. Canada has no gold in its reserves and no Bitcoin, and not very favorable to Bitcoin. And here's another one of these elitists telling you why not.
So can Bitcoin be like a digital form of gold?
Okay.
No.
That's the final answer, right?
Yeah.
Shall we leave it?
You know, I hesitate to say that, but I say it because I have no fear. Because I know that the social media tonight and tomorrow is going to hit me like crazy. Because that's the community that they form, and that's the belief that they have, and that's the confidence that they generate amongst themselves. But I still am of the view that there is no intrinsic value and there is no underlying value to it. Which doesn't mean to say that there is no hype created as a result, that some can associate with a value, meaning a price, which then moves up and down depending on what happens, who is instrumental. So
that's good.
It's still a pretty common opinion, that, isn't it? But it's just, I think the thing with her, she's saying that they're going to attack me on social media, and then she says it's their fault basically because they're so overconfident and they're so stupid that they'll just attack me because that's what they do. That's not quite the whole story though, is it, Christine? I think it's because this critique is coming out of your mouth, and you represent decades of failure and stagnation in Europe and among the international liberal elite. That is why you're going to get stick on social media. It's because your reputation is dirt.
And it's what they've done to the currencies all over the world is why Bitcoin is a thing. Gold actually broke $4,000 an ounce today, I think in the December contracts. And here's Christine Lagarde's claim. There you go, Christina. Good job. Now
but I mean, I suppose she said it doesn't have any intrinsic value. Gold does have intrinsic value, but obviously nowhere near what it sells for. The price that it sells for doesn't represent its actual real world value, does it?
Nothing does.
But for some reason,
nothing does. Nothing does.
Yeah, well, that's it. Including the US dollar, you know, it's yeah.
Price is what you call a discovery process, and the discovery is if what I'm trying to sell you, you're willing to pay a price for, that's the discovery. So that's how price is determined, right? There is no, you know what I mean? There is no actual value, right? I mean, you can value things against other values. Like if a company has X amount of Bitcoin, X amount of gold, X amount of that, and you look at all the other values, and then you say, well, and then that's made worth that much in US dollars at that current time in that transaction. That's a transactional thing. But price is discovery. And if you allow a free market, that's what discovery does. And right now, the discovery says Bitcoin is at all-time highs, and gold is at all-time highs, and the euro is falling. There you go. Let's move on to our BC news.
Coming to you live from the Now Media Newsroom.
John Rustad not holding back, says EB has nothing to offer but ideology. And ready for this? Unicorn farts. There you go. John Rustad chucking stuff out there. But first, this is Eleanor Sturko. David Eby admitted last week the NDP was wrong on safe supply and decriminalization. The Premier must also admit that the NDP's pro-drug, anti-police policies and ideology have emboldened foreign government-backed transnational crime organizations to turn BC into a hub for deadly drug production and export. And we saw that. New Zealand had their biggest bust ever. And where did it come from? Vancouver. All in meth in maple syrup jars, right? So, I mean, and this has been said by the FBI and the DEA as well, that there is Mexican cartels and Chinese cartels operating in British Columbia. That big drug bust, remember the RCMP wouldn't even share information with the DEA and FBI. Just amazing. But we're going to listen to a little clip here where John Rustad and actually we won't because of the time, we won't. But anyway, they just go back and forth and just John Rustad's the biggest comment there is that the Premier has nothing to offer but ideology and unicorn farts. I mean, it's the same thing from EB. We watched EB earlier. You just basically sub in any text and you can watch EB perform there. It's very performative. And John Rustad, you know, he needs to work on his performance. I think he can deliver his messages better. But I like the unicorn fart thing. I see that Jason
Quite
Kenney's...
a colourful image.
I think Jason Kenney's Mud Hutter's taken off on the internet. There's a lot of Mud Hutter talk going on out there. Remember when Jason Kenney called David Eby a Mud Hutter? And that's taken off. Well, let's going to move on to international news quickly because we're definitely over the hour.
Coming to you live from the Now Media Newsroom.
And the big thing in international news, obviously, it's the second anniversary of the October 7th massacres. Israelis are mourning on the second anniversary, which was led by the Islamic terror group Hamas in 2023. About 1,200 people, mostly civilians, were slaughtered in southern Israel during this atrocity, prompting retaliation from the victim nation and continues to this day. And what's troubling, Canada's committed over $400 million in assistance to the West Bank and Gaza. I'm not sure where that money goes. Does anybody know? And we support the sustained large-scale delivery of humanitarian aid into the region. Greta Thunberg was there too, and she was, I think, taken in by the Israelis and then sent home again. Isn't it the second time the Israelis have grabbed her and sent her home? And then there's a bunch of Swedish, interneters that are going like, we don't want her back. Don't send her back.
But she also had the goal, and her little team of activists had the goal to complain about how they'd been treated by Israel, and they were furious, and they were being very self-righteous. I just think bugger off. This country is at war, and it's been at war for 2 years. Stop messing around. You're very lucky that it's Israel, and obviously that's why she's going to Israel and not somewhere like Sudan or even China or Russia, because she knows if she went somewhere like that, there'd be a good chance she would get killed. But instead she goes to Israel, where she's treated quite nicely, and then she just complains. It's so tiresome, as the meme has it.
A cynic might say that Greta Thunberg is one of her best assets is her ability to fundraise. She was one of the better fundraisers for climate change, and then that thing kind of dried up with Trump winning the election, so the climate thing, and now the Palestinian thing has really helped her raise money. So Greta Thunberg, a cynic would say, is a really good fundraiser, and she just moves on to cause. Remember when CNN actually put her on and she was doing COVID for a while? She was the expert on
trial,
COVID,
wasn't it?
Just what is literally going on? We have a 16-year-old science person. Her and Bill Gates. Here's some reaction from the new Prime Minister of Japan. Very pleased and to read such warm words of congratulations from Trump. Be interesting to see when she visits Washington. Japan and Washington have very strong relationship, actually. They talk, Canada says we're the best friends, but Japan and Washington also have a very strong tie. A lot of the auto manufacturing.
Well, Japan is completely subordinated to the US. It's, it wouldn't be much of a stretch to say that it's kind of like a vassal or a satrapy or something of
the US. If anybody was in the running for 51st state, I would say Japan would probably lead the way, because they have, we don't have an American military. Well, we actually do. I shouldn't say that. I was going to say we don't have a military base. We do in the north. We have Americans there, but they have a more. I would say in Japan it's definitely more high profile there.
Yeah, and I mean, the US has soldiers there, and they have this relationship because the United States annihilated their navy with the assistance of the British and destroyed their army and set off 2 nuclear bombs in their country, and then sailed into Tokyo Harbor and said, "This is how it's going to go."
They were atomic bombs, though, I guess. You know, like not the new age nuclear bombs, but atomic.
Well, they weren't. Yeah.
They weren't the new age stuff.
They weren't hydrogen bombs, were they? But you can still call it it's still nuclear weapons.
Yeah.
It's still the principle of nuclear weapons.
Well, I think the Hiroshima was over 100,000 people, so the devastation was just. Here's the thing, and this is the difference. Again, listen to this, and then compare it to our government here. Listen to this. This is CNN.
Back to October of 2024, 44% of the American public viewed him favorably. Now, despite everything, look at this, 43%, which is well within the margin of error of that 44%. And here's the thing to keep in mind. This was good enough to get Trump reelected back in 2024. And Donald Trump is basically at the same point here right now, which I think would surprise a lot of folks, especially a lot of folks on the left who very much disagree with a lot of what Donald Trump has done.
But what do you see is underneath that and driving that? Why is he basically the same?
Okay, you know, to quote the esteemed caller Dennis Green, the former head coach in the National Football League, Donald Trump is who the voters thought he was. What are we talking about here? Well, is Trump doing what he promised in the 2024 campaign? Yes, 50.
Is Mark Carney said who he is? Is he doing what he said he was going to do?
Well, he did say that he would split the budget into operational and capital expenses, and he did say that he would pass a law making it illegal to do certain things. Yeah, so it's just whether or not people are happy about that.
The pipeline. Jean Chrétien that night said, we're going to build pipelines when he was running. You know what I mean? Like, we're going to build pipelines. And the liberals all screeched and screamed, like, we're going to build pipelines. Where's the pipeline? We're going to be an energy superpower. Now they're couching, we're going to be a clean energy superpower. No. Where's the deals? Where's the deals? I'm going to get a deal. I'm going to get a deal. Where's the deal? Here he's coming back from Washington. Was there a deal in any of that stuff? Did you see any deals?
I mean, to be fair, some nice words, but yeah,
we got that last
no
time.
deal yet.
We got nice words last time, right? Chinese car maker Delights, and this is for the UK because they're letting him in there. Delights an 880% surge in UK sales. Chinese electric BYD announced that UK has become its biggest market outside of China. So that'll be the end of the Nissans and them in the UK there. Sales surging 880% in September. The UK, unlike Canada and the UE refused to allow follow the U.S. lead in applying tariffs on Chinese EVs, making the market attractive. So yeah, so there's a ton of Chinese electric car makers that are selling cars in Britain. So I guess it's good for the British though, because it's cheaper cars typically.
It might be good for the consumer, but in a sense, it's kind of dumb, isn't it? You see the third most popular one there, the Qashqai. That I'm pretty sure that's still made in England. It used to be made in England. Yeah. So they're kind of like they're selling out their own auto manufacturers, really, which that was what was at stake here in Canada as well. But I don't know. Nissan
was almost bankrupt. They did a last-minute deal there. They relaxed their EV mandates and emissions targets there for Nissan to stay viable. They had to make that deal for Nissan in the UK. And at the same time, it's just like this is where they just don't see. They just can't see the big picture. This is including the Liberals in Canada and in the UK. They just don't look at the big picture. They just seem to be reactionary all the time. Again, I'll go back to our lead story, and our lead story was Trilogy Minerals, a Canadian miner with a bunch of Canadian guys that were a big part of what built Canada, Canadian mines, from Placer Dome and Ivanhoe and all those things. Just got a huge deal and almost a 300% bump in their stock. Why? Because they got a deal from the Americans. The American government, the Department of War, invested in Trilogy Minerals, and they're going to advance a mine in Alaska, fast track it, not just advance it, fast track it. You're going to have that road built right away. They're fast tracking everything. You show me what is being fast tracked in Canada. AI. Evan Solomon says he's going to travel across the country and talk to people and see what, we're going to fast track AI. Evan Solomon? Come on.
Come on, man.
Come on. Like AI might reach singularity by the time Canada finds out what AI even means.
Let's hope that we can get hold of it then. Somebody might give it to us.
Well, you know, if that bill they're talking about here, was it Bill C8? We might not, nobody might, in Canada, we might not have the internet unless we have Starlink, because the Canadian government now can turn off your internet.
Yeah.
I guess
we'll inevitably be the first targets, aren't we? Don't like our banter.
No, I'm sure they don't. I know Chrystia Freeland, she's a friend of the show, because we use her all the time, and her famous slogan there, which should be put right underneath the liberal motto of, for the benefit of the few, the expense of the many, right underneath it, a wasted decade of virtue signaling and identity politics. Yeah. Again, one last recap of this. The United States government invested in a Canadian miner, Trilogy Minerals. Go find it on yourself, Stockwatch, go wherever you want to go. And that miner soars. That miner right now, and just take a look here, Trilogy Minerals. I was a controller for a while at a mine site, and it's really tough to do stuff in Canada here. Trilogy Minerals right now up 235% at $9.83. $9.83, and we showed you the stock chart, and that's they say they're going to have that road built in the spring. That's a 200-mile road, so they get access to the mine site. It's going to be a toll road, so the mining company is going to pay for the road at the end of the day. Got any fast tracks? Do we have anything fast tracking here? Oh, we do have Tim Hodson did tout. You know, on my LinkedIn and read it. A carbon capture company coming to Canada, and it's going to get. They said they can't make it in the United States because the United States kiboshed all the $76 billion worth of green credits that they were going to dole out. So the tap was shut off. But hey, they're just like, the tap's wide open in Canada. So an American company's coming here to take dollars out of the Canadian till taxpayer, 75%, and then they're going to be given the ability to tax the oil companies. And here's the best part. They're going to inject this stuff into, here, I had a question I was asked this morning. I was just like, they're going to inject the carbon into deep saline wells into the earth. What if there's an earthquake and all that carbon escapes? Who's responsible for that then? Hey? You know, because it's gas, right? Like, it's gas. You know what I mean? It could work its way through fissures, no? Like, you know?
It's so crazy, isn't it? But also just the fact that it's like very inefficient process, doesn't capture very much carbon, and then you bury it underground and it represents a tiny fraction of global emissions.
And then you want to, and for everybody that's screaming about the climate, you want to, like, remember when Trudeau promised to plant 1 billion trees? That's one of the easiest things to do, isn't it? Hire a bunch of kids, go plant trees. Is it done?
It was beset by problems, wasn't it?
No. I mean, how much was done and how much was spent? How many trees are planted? Let's just see if we can ask real quick before we go. How many?
Vintage Trudeau scandal there.
Trees
You're taking us back.
Planted. And at what cost?
It was 2 billion trees, by the way, not 1 billion.
And let's just see if our friend here can tell us if he's got a number for us here. Yeah, you're right. 2 billion trees. The federal Canadian initiative was to plant 2 billion trees. The government committed up to $3.2 billion.
Nice.
So, as of August 2023, 56 million new trees under new agreements. Just trying to find the cost for all this here. Now it says they're talking about $5.6 billion. Trudeau said 2 billion trees by 2031 at $3.2 billion. So far, supported and planted numbers are well under the target. Government claims over 110 million trees. Independent report says only 8.5 million trees. Anyway. So if they're really serious, why aren't the trees done? That should be the simplest thing to do. But instead, we got these companies coming from America, carbon capture. They're going to build these monstrosities. They're going to use energy. They're going to use these monstrosity fans, put it on, I guess, farmland, I guess, and then drill holes into the earth, which I thought they were against fracking. Isn't that like a similar to that? You're going to actually inject more stuff into the ground that can go anywhere because they don't know what's
going
in
to
the ground.
require energy to power it. So that's, less energy for other things.
But they're against fracking because what it does to the ground, because you can't control where it goes because you don't know what's down there. It's not like, like 400 feet down, you know that there's a sealed chamber down there. You have no idea what's down there, right? So you're just going to inject it to Never Never Land, and then you're going to sell it to somebody. And you're going to have somebody rubber seal it and say, yes, you bought these carbon credits. So now
But right now, the buyer, the principal buyer, is you, the Canadian taxpayer.
Yep.
But you haven't had a chance to decide whether or not you want to buy this. It's just being done on your behalf.
I guess good news for Chris Barber and Tamara Litch. I guess you're going to find out about, again, if you come back here around 3 o'clock, I'm going to have John Carpay on from the Justice Center for Constitutional Freedoms, and he'll probably give us more details to what happens, because I think there's still big red up for if they're going to give him back his truck as well, right? Because it was seen as the flag bearer for this movement. Anyway.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I didn't have a chance to read all the details, but the conditional sentence looks like it's going to include some pretty severe requirements, like house arrest and that kind of thing. Yeah. So I'm just having a quick look at it now. 6 months under curfew. So this is Chris Barber, 18-month conditional sentence, 12 months at home with limited outings, so kind of partial house arrest, 6 months under a curfew, and 100 hours of community service. And I can't see what Litch was given here.
It'll be interesting to see what Antifa protesters get and Palestinian protesters get.
It's not even just protesters, is it? Like, there are a lot of people that commit violent crime and get conditional sentences. It's not even just mischief.
Not even arrested. Anyway, that's our show for today. We'll be back tomorrow, 9 a.m. We're on every weekday morning at 9 a.m. If you're interested in this, if you could like and share it, that'd be really appreciated so we can get this out more. If you like the government-funded media, by all means. We don't have $1.55 billion. We're a tad short. We're about $1.55 billion short. Anyway,
roughly.
We'll see you tomorrow. All right, cheers.
We don't just report the news. We live here too. We're your neighbors, bringing you stories that matter to all of us. No government funding, no outside influence. Kelowna Now, local, independent. News you can trust.